Hi, this is Bobby Bright with John Broughton on Retrospectives, celebrating 25 years on air at Casey Radio 97.7 FM.
Just to get us started, your career began over in Adelaide. What was the scene like over there at that stage?
Well, it was the very beginning of television in Adelaide. I think television had been in Melbourne for some time, and we used to have people like Bert Newton and people like that come across and compare shows, and they were known for their television work in Melbourne. But it hadn't hit Adelaide, and so when it did hit, Channel 9 were looking around, they doing talent quests and things like that, and I was 13, and I went one night to a basketball social with a friend of mine who played men's basketball for the church, and I drank at that social for the first time in my life and found myself singing with the band that was on there, and I still don't really know whether I was invited or whether I just jumped up and sang. But the upshot of that was I got a telegram the next day telling me to be at the Palais on Saturday to enter a talent quest. And it was anonymous. I still don't know who sent that. And so I went to the Palais in North Terrace in Adelaide on the Saturday afternoon. And Johnny O'Keefe was the judge of the talent quest, and I won it. And the next week I was on television on this program called Woody's Teen Time, which was a teenage music program that started when television did over there. So that's the way it worked for me.
Now, I'm sure you've been asked this many times before, but do you remember the first time you met Laurie Allen?
I don't recall the exact first time, but it would have been, it would have been at the ballroom in Mailing Road, Canterbury. Used to be a ballroom there. It's no longer there. But when I had come across to Melbourne, I used to work there of a Thursday night, and the other band that was on was Laurie Allen and the Blue Jays. So that's where I would have first met him. And then after those shows, we all used to sit around and have a drink and that. And Laurie and I would always finish up singing harmony together in some room somewhere, just to sort of wind down type of thing. Mm.
Now, there was an outfit called the Roulettes in there somewhere, wasn't there?
Not really. I used to work on a Friday night. What was happening, these dances were run by a guy called Ivan Damon who lived in Adelaide, and we used to travel across from Adelaide every Thursday, and we'd work at Mailing Road, and then on Friday nights we'd work at the Mariana Hall in Sunshine, and the band there was Billy Pearce and the Roulettes. But that was never my band, or Laurie and I never really worked with them or anything like that. That was always Billy Pearce's band. So yeah, in a way, I did sing with the Roulettes a bit, but it wasn't. They weren't our backing band or anything like that. No.
Right. When you were working together as the duo, how much were you influenced by the trends, both musically and I guess image-wise, that were coming out of England at the time?
Very much, I'd say. Laurie was one of those guys that used to stay up all night tape recording BBC shows that were broadcast in the early morning, like 4 o'clock at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or something like that. And that was all stuff like, that would be the Stones, the Beatles, the Small Faces, all these bands before they made big-time records. Mm-hmm. And so we were influenced by that. And the fashion thing, well, I mean, I'd always had quite long hair, but you always had to sort of have all sorts of Brill cream or some stuff in it, to keep it all under control and push back. And all of a sudden you could just wash your hair and it looked like you had a Beatle haircut. So it sort of worked well from that point of view. And fashion-wise, well, the whole world was going a bit crazy in the 60s, so we were certainly in on that. I used to design a lot of the outfits we wore and things like that.
You released some classic recordings together, I Belong With You, the first of them. How confident were you that you had a hit on your hands with that record after you'd finished in the studio with it?
I wouldn't say confident. We knew we had a good record, partly that was due to the fact that it's a good song. Secondly, it was due to the fact that it was produced by a guy called Roger Savage, who'd just come out from England at that time and had a lot more clues on how to get more sound on a record.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of, well, Laurie wrote the song as a ballad, basically. I Belong With You as a kind of a Peter and Gordon type slow ballad, and I said, it needs to have a bit of thump about it. So we thought about all that and got together some big long wooden boards on bricks and mic'd either end of the board, and then we had people stamping on the board to sort of put that bottom end thump, 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 thump thing in there. And it literally did make it jump off the radio. So I think once I'd heard it on the radio, once we'd sort of talked about it and saw the reaction we were getting, you knew you had a hit,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say we were confident when we listened to it first up, It was just, that sounds good.
You were both regular television performers in those days, which took you into the lounge rooms right across Australia. How pivotal to your success was the exposure that you got on TV?
Oh, totally vital. You could go from, no one even recognising you in the street to don't dare get on a tram, or particularly if the school's just got out, because you get ripped apart by 1,000 schoolgirls. It was kind of scary in a way. First time that happened to me on a tram going out to Preston, I was off that tram the next stop, and it took me a long while to get back on a tram. Fortunately, it's not a worry these days, John.
You got involved in children's television too at the height of your music success. Did that seem a strange career move for you at the time?
I guess it was. We didn't really think about it in terms of the career. It was just another... Laurie and I had both been singing for quite a while before we teamed up, and we'd always seen ourselves in show business rather than being pop stars, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just happened that we had hit records. So when the producers of the show, which were the same people that produced the Go Show, basically, Godfrey Phillips and people like that, asked us to do it, we just thought, well, yeah, why not? It's a whole new, level of fans type, so to speak. So, it was a bit weird, I must admit, but it came about because we'd done pantomimes before that. We did Alice in Wonderland at the Tivoli. I think the last year the Tivoli was standing in Burke Street there. We did, and that Laurie and I were Tweedledum and Tweedledee. So I think that's what gave the producers of the show the idea to sort of convert it to television type of thing. Because that was a lot of that show was written by what's his name? John Michael House.
Oh, of course, yes.
Who was great to work with, because he used to play Fifi Bear, dressed up in a bear suit, waddling around. Yes, those good, fond memories.
I'm having flashbacks to my childhood now.
There you go.
How did the arrangement of Hitchhiker come together? That stands up so well today.
It does. It's a good record. Life sometimes it's just happy accidents. Like, I Belong With You was the happy accident of Roger Savage arriving at the right time. With Hitchhiker, it was more a case we were in Adelaide again. We were doing a pantomime over there. It was the third one we'd done, and Terry Britton from the Twilights had just come back from England and brought with him a couple of fuzz boxes, I recall. It was one of the first plug-ins you could buy for a guitar, where you plug it in, hit it with your foot, and it'd make that sort of fuzzy noise. And so we had that. That was one of the first ones in Australia. And at the same time, Laurie was listening to all these old Roger Miller records. And Laurie had a version of it with Roger Miller singing, but it was all saxophones and things. It wasn't. There was none of the guitar effects or anything that we used, although the melody was all the same. So we basically, because we had this new sort of guitar effect, decided to use it, and that's what the car noise is, and the high-pitched guitar behind the monologue's the same thing. Yeah. It was, it was played by Roger Treble, who was in the Rondells at that time.
Were there any thoughts during the time of your main success here in music to break into the overseas market?
Yeah, there was an attempt made when we toured with PJ Proby, and he really liked our act and what we did, and we got on well with him. We wrote some songs with him and stuff like that, and he took some. Gave us. We were recording at the time, or just after he left, and there was some contact made with a company in England to mix these new tracks we were doing, which was the start of a plan to go there. But when we got the mixes back, they were really horrible. We hated them. So we sort of canned that idea, and nothing ever came of it after that. It was a little more difficult at that time. You know, and there are a lot more networks opened up in the 70s that to assist you getting there, with the Hoadley's Battle of the Sound and all that started it up. But I don't know, we just never made it there. Would have been interesting to try.
Talk about your television program, Dig We Must. Did you have much say in the format of that program?
Not really, no. That was that again. The guy that Barry Langford was his name. He originally came here as PJ Proby's tour manager. He had a track record in England of producing the Tom Jones television show.
Oh yeah.
And while he was here, he lobbied with the ABC and got the contract to do that show for them. And basically, we obviously put forward what songs we would want to sing, but we'd have to put through 3 or 4, from which one or two would get chosen. And I think that's what basically split us up for the first time, that show, because it was constant work. By that I mean you'd be working on 3 or 4 shows at any one time. Like one day you'd be rehearsing for next week's choreographed stuff. Then in the afternoon you'd be in a meeting to discuss last week's show. And then tomorrow you'd have to be learning or putting down the backing tracks for the songs for the next week's show. You know what I mean? It was every day was something, and it was just like you just got so sick of it. Got sick of seeing each other. Do you know?
Yeah.
I think if it had happened these days, we would have had a break and then gone back to do some more work, which is actually what we did. But people report there's a big split up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we did think we'd split up, but I mean, these days you would just go, no, we just overload with work. We don't need to do it for another 12 months, and then we'll do an album or something like that. So you didn't think like that in those days. It's all changed, John.
After that split, though, did you know straight away what you wanted to do with the next stage of your career?
Not particularly. I mean, I'd always been fascinated by radio. I used to do radio shows in Adelaide on Saturday nights, or in a way they were equivalent of the footy show that's on telly now. It was after the game and players had come from the teams and there'd be an audience and be 3 or 4 guest stars through the night. And I was always fascinated by the way radio was such a land of make-believe, and yet it all sounded great down the other end, whereas if you're actually in the studio, there's people waving their arms and, all sorts of stuff happening. Yeah. That's always fascinated me. So I was talking to Lily Brett one day. She used to write for Go Set. She's now a world-famous author, I believe. But she suggested I should do a tape for 3XY, which was the big sort of pop station at the time. So I did. I cobbled one together and just on a little home cassette thing, played a few records and read a few ads out of the paper and did that stuff. Took it in there to see the program manager, whose name was Dick Hemming. And he looked at me and, he listened to the tape and he looked at me and said, well, have you got any experience with the panels? I said, no. He said, well, you better get some. You're on at midnight. I went, what? So he took me down to this little, practice studio. And I practiced queuing up records and doing all that stuff you have to do. And yeah, launched myself onto airwaves at midnight, and enjoyed a good couple of years with XY. It was good. But now, look, my career has very much just seemed to have taken me where it wants to. You can make all the plans in the world, and if the chemistry is not right, it doesn't happen, you know. And I've always found, I don't quite know how to put it, but it's like knowing what you want and but not forcing it, waiting till it actually goes by, and you go, oh, that's what I need, that's it, that's the one. And it's always sort of worked that way for me.
There was a change in musical direction when you got back together as a duo, a more country tilt. Did that alienate some of your initial fans from the pop days?
It might have. It may have. Laurie had always been more country than me, and I think it was the only logical way to go anyway. You can't go on forever. You know, we'd reached the zenith with Hitchhiker. Then when we came back with Carroll County Accident, I think it was a good move to sell records. I don't know that it was really good for our career, but I think it did get some awards. I think Duo of the Year or something like that.
Now, you branched out into acting as well during the 70s. Was that an area that you always had a strong interest in?
I wouldn't say strong interest, curiosity, and there again, people see you on telly and offer you a little bit part in something, and you think, oh, why not? And before that, I mean, back in those days, Crawfords were really pushing out a lot of shows, you know, like Homicide and Division 4, those sorts of things. And I always used to get the part as a baddie, you know. It was more like training for a decathlon than acting, you know. It was sort of run down that alley, jump that fence, run up those stairs, jump through that window, that sort of stuff. Don't say too much. Just a few grunts, perhaps, you know. Well, no, it wasn't me, or something. But look, I always again, a film shoot's as fascinating as a radio studio, because you're just watching this whole team of people focusing on one thing, you know, that's not even real, and yet the finished product looks great, you know.
Yeah.
It always fascinates me.
Now, apart from various reunions with Laurie over the years, what other musical projects are you most proud of from the 80s and 90s?
Oh, I wrote, it was, let me think, during the 70s I wrote music for the ABC for a program called Breakaway, which was one of the first reality TV programs, if I think back on it. A guy called Stuart Fakney used to go out and do crazy things like one week they'd send him out to learn hang gliding, and another week it'd be diving down caves, and then it'd be living with a circus. You know, just different out there things each week. And I used to go along on all the film shoots and write sort of songs or background music or whatever was needed for the particular shoot. And I've seen and heard some of those back currently, and I look back and think that was a pretty good thing, because I think it was about one of the first times that the ABC had started to use homegrown street music rather than, you know, classical music and highbrow stuff. So that was a good thing to do. I enjoyed doing Tommy with,
of course, yeah,
Keith Moon, and that was a good experience. A 100-piece orchestra, a 50-piece choir. It was pretty huge, so that was good. And I've had little bands through the years that I've really enjoyed the music we made, but they haven't been huge successes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But doesn't stop the fact that when I put our tracks on and listen to them, I think, geez, that was a hot little band. I mean, I had a band, it wasn't my band, but I was in a band there during the late 80s with, well, basically it was Johnny Farnham's horn section and drummer. Ross Hannaford was the guitar player, and Greg Thomas was the bass player, and I was the singer. It was a band called Big Dump. But we only used to work on Sunday afternoons because most of the time these guys were all off touring with Johnny Farnham.
Uh-huh.
But it was a great band, and I've got about 9 tracks that we recorded with that band that are really hot. But nothing ever happened, you know. It's just something you did once. Although they still stand up, I play it to people now. They go, "Wow, that's incredible." And I had a good band last year, but my main member in it died. So really finished that band off. And at the moment, I'm just writing. I'm sort of working out with a piano player at the moment, trying to work out small venue type stuff, you know, because, well, just venues are harder to find these days.
Yeah, true.
Particularly if you can't carry a 6-piece band around, you know. So I'm trying to work out with a piano player, and we'll see how that goes.
Now, you've made quite a niche for yourself in the voiceover field. How did that come about for you?
That came about by working at 3XY. When I was there, you'd have to go in once or twice a week to do ads and things, and I started working with a guy called Jim Berenson, who at the time was the total doyen of voiceover radio. Ran a company that, you know, an agency that got work for you and all that sort of stuff. And he just liked my approach and liked my voice, I think, and started getting me work as the sort of second voice when he got a job, you know. He started saying to people, "Oh, look, there's this young bloke, you should give him a try," and stuff like that. And it basically just escalated from there until during the 80s it was flat out. I mean, you know, I'd be starting at 10 o'clock in the morning and not finishing till 5:30 at night.
Wow.
With half hour between jobs type stuff, you know. That, of course, has all slowed down a bit. And then for 10 years I did all the Bunnings advertising. And, that until Christmas before last. Well, that was quite good. It was a good account to have. But, it goes round. I still do quite a bit of work. Keeps me off the street.
Pays the bills, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, no doubt it came as quite a shock for you to hear of Laurie's passing a few years ago. You'd just done a gig together a few weeks prior to that, hadn't you?
Yeah, we had. 2 weeks before that, we had. Yeah, it did. I got a call that if I wanted to say goodbye to my mate, I should go to the Monash Hospital, and he'd had this giant heart attack. They were pumping up with 100% adrenaline, but it wasn't having any reaction, so they pulled the plug on him in the end. Yeah, I was there when that happened. Wasn't the best day.
No.
No.
Did you have plans to do any more work together at that point?
Not firm plans. We were always in contact, and you know, we'd do 2 or 3 shows a year. That was enough to keep us happy at that level. Laurie was working with a couple of other guys, Bernie O'Brien and Warren Keats, for the last 18 months or so before he died. Mm-hmm. There's a heap of stuff they've got that he was putting down, like which I think you can access through the internet through Warren Keats' site.
Oh yes, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was what he was up to. But so we had no firm plans, but it just seemed that a few times a year people would want it, and we were happy to do it.
Yeah.
That was about as far as we'd taken it. We had we did record some material. Oh, when was that? Late 80s, was it? Early 90s? I'm not sure now. Hang on, I'll check. Turning point pen. I can't see any date on it. What a silly thing. Anyway, yeah, we went into the studio and put together a lot of songs. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, as is so with all albums.
Yeah.
But we possibly would have continued in that vein, doing some more recording and stuff like that. But it wasn't to be. But the last performance was a good one. I've actually got most of it on film.
Oh, really?
Well, on videotape, yeah.
So after so
But
many...
I don't own it.
You don't own it, no.
No, I don't own it, no.
After so many years in the business, what would be your best bit of career advice you could give to somebody just starting out in music?
Oh, don't give up.
Yeah.
You just got to keep. You just got to keep wanting it. Don't give up. Do it, and do what you like to do. Don't try too much to do what to what you think other people want to hear. Do what you want to do, and keep doing it. That would be my advice.
Sounds good. And any regrets at all? Anything you'd if you had the power to, you'd go back and change?
Look, I'd like to make millions of dollars, John.
We all.
It never happened. But no, look, it's been an eventful life. I don't regret it. No, it was. I mean, it really took us into places you'd never go, and you see how the world works, and it was enjoyable. It was good.
You can't complain about that.
No, indeed.
Bobby, thanks so much for your time. It's been fantastic to catch up with you. Thanks for all the great music over the years. And
pleasure.
We'll listen out for your dulcet tones in many a voiceover.
Okay. Don't buy anything you don't want to buy, though.
Good advice.
Okay,
Thanks,
John.
Bobby. All the best.